Joining me now, NBC's Ryan Nobles has been reporting on these raids in California. Also here, Nick Miroff, staff writer at The Atlantic, who spoke to more than a dozen current and former ICE agents about morale problems inside the agency. It's good to have both of you. Ryan, what else can you tell us about this cannabis farm raid in California?
Well, this was a massive facility, Chris. 5.5 million acres in all indoors in Southern California, in the town of Camarillo. And what happened is that these ICE agents descended upon this facility. The folks at the Glass House Farms were unaware of it at the time. They did say that they fully complied with the requests by the agents to enter into the facility and look for people who they were targets of this raid. Listen to how one of the workers at the facility described how it went down.
They just went in without expecting. There was a lot of people. There was just a lot of, like, if they were on war or something, they came, the guns were drawn and everything. They came, like, what else can do? We got surrounded. They closed everything. The whole cars went in. The whole pathway we could run. They were blocked off.
And, of course, this raid led to a massive protest in and around the facility, clashes between protesters and the ICE agents and other law enforcement that were there on the scene. The law enforcement responding with tear gas. And then there was even one protester that's accused of firing a shot in the direction of law enforcement. The FBI right now issuing a reward for for anyone that could find and help them locate the person responsible for firing that shot. But, Chris, at the very least, this shows just how high tensions are right now, particularly in this part of the country around facilities like this farm, which President Trump has said that they're working to try and find some sort of carve out in this immigration enforcement crackdown that would allow these farms to continue to use migrant labor. Chris.
Ryan Nobles, thank you for that. So, Nick, the president has publicly praised ICE, but NBC News has new reporting that Stephen Miller, who we know has his ear, is upset that immigration arrests have fallen from a recent high of 2,300 a day to under 2,000. What can you tell us about the pressure agents are feeling right now?
Sure. Well, there is a relentless pressure coming down from the White House on ICE, on rank and file officers and agents who feel like they have to meet these numbers that they're they told me were like a mission impossible. We're talking about levels of arrests that are 5 and 6 times what they were doing before, and they simply don't have the resources, the personnel, to meet what Miller and others at the White House are demanding of them. And that's, one of the big factors that has led to low morale at the agency, and many agents and officers saying they're, more miserable in their jobs right now than they've ever been.
The Seattle Times, Nick, describes another scene beyond the ones we just showed, where with tires screeching, some SUVs pulled up along a main drag. People came out masked, some of them with protective vests, and agents, quote, grabbed a woman known as the Food Lady because she sells food in the community along with other street vendors. As they were walking off, a bystander shouted out to the ICE agents, "What kind of people are you?" Some agents I know you talk to are acutely aware of the fact that they've become a kind of persona non grata in some places. Tell us more about how they're feeling about how they're perceived.
I mean, certainly there are agents out there that are all in on the president's orders and are thrilled to be doing this kind of work. But I think that glosses over the many others who feel conflicted about what they're doing. They signed up to be federal law enforcement agents. They thought, they want to be out there catching criminals and, protecting the country from national security threats. And instead, they're under this incredible pressure to meet their quotas. And so they're being sent out to go for the lowest hanging fruit, so to speak, of, the easiest people to arrest. And a lot of times those are, poor people who are out on the street who who they could be profiling. They think that they may be arrestable, and so they're grabbing them. And it's sort of the lowest quality type of immigration enforcement work. And it shouldn't be a surprise that a lot of these agents feel really conflicted about that. And at the same time, they know that the public is furious. When they go out in public, they're getting, screamed at. They're being confronted by activists. And so they're masking up and sort of retreating behind all this tactical gear. And they know that in the long term, it really undermines the agency and the perception of ICE in the public.
Even if they're not rounding up the number of people that say Stephen Miller would like them to, obviously they are continuing to round people up. We know, for example, that they opened Alligator Alcatraz down in Florida. Do they have even the infrastructure to keep up?
Well, they haven't had the infrastructure to keep up. They've only been funded for about 40,000, detainees in their detention centers per day. Right now, they're close to 60,000. So their detention centers are massively overcrowded, and conditions continue to deteriorate. But let's remember that Congress just gave DHS and ICE tens of billions of dollars, and almost unimaginable amount of funding, including about $45 billion to expand detention facilities across the United States. So they now have the money to try to carry out the kind of mass deportation campaign that Trump has demanded of them. And the next phase, I think we can expect that all of these tensions, all of the scenes that you're seeing are going to really intensify. And they are capable of arresting and deporting a lot more people than they have been doing so far.
People who want to read more of your reporting can find it in The Atlantic. Nick Miroff, thanks for coming on the show.